What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? It is Matty P and Marky D back with you again for another Mad Monday. We're going to look at grading some coaches. But first, Marky D, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing all right, not too bad. It's Monday here for us, but I had a good weekend with I went and saw the grand final. The Mariners won 6-1, so I'm now a new Mariners supporter.
League.
Yeah,
That's like what's it? MLS.
Yeah. So I haven't seen them play in like 10 years, but it was pretty fun being out there out in Parramatta Stadium. And actually, I have said this a few times that I don't want to see the NFL in Australia, but I'm kind of coming back on my word a little bit, because if I were to be given free tickets, thanks NFL, because you and I are big YouTube celebrities now. So if the NFL gave us free tickets, we would walk into them with a heartbeat. I would actually go to Parramatta Stadium. It's actually a really good stadium, eh? Have you been there?
How long did it take you to get there from your place? Because you're pretty far away from
hour and a half by car, and then we parked near the Coles car park underground when no one knew where to go. So it was pretty empty into there, hidden away, and then we walked to the stadium, got some dinner, and the stadium's awesome, man.
I've heard good things about that. I haven't been out there. I'm about the same distance from my place from that stadium.
If you had an NFL game there, you could see everything. And I'm talking about like the receivers moving in motion.
I mean, have you been to the new? Have you been since they fixed the Sydney Football Stadium? Have you been to that one?
No, I haven't been there in yonks.
So since they fixed that, that's a lot more vertical as well. Because you know how a problem with a lot of Australian stadiums, they go out like this. So like it's a lot more vertical, and that's what I've heard good things about the Parramatta.
It's stadium. Honestly. We sat about 15 rows back from the back, and you're up pretty high. If you suffer with vertigo, I probably wouldn't recommend it, because it's a bit like this, right?
Yeah.
But when you're looking down the stadium, you see everything in you see the whole field. So you see the center forwards moving up, the midfields. But in NFL terms, you can see like the receivers move, different route combinations. It would actually be like watching all 22. It'd be pretty fun to watch the whole thing. Man. Like it was sick. So if it does come there, I would say it hosts about 40,000. So if the NFL does that, put it in Parramatta, I'll go down a heartbeat. I backtrack what I said a few years ago, but not coming over, because I'll probably watch a game.
You said it in January when we were talking about it.
I say it every time we come on here.
All right. So we're going to get into the grading the coaches, but I saw something on social media and I thought it was worth a question. I actually thought the Steelers weren't dogged until I heard that it was wide receiver ratings. And then I was like, I don't know if I fully agree with this. Ooh. So AFC North Access on Instagram put up this post. Now it has had about almost 1250 likes by the time we go now live to air. So they have one in the AFC North. Top ranked wide receiver is Jamar Chase, which I think is probably pretty fair on all reasonable accounts. Second is Amari Cooper. Third is T. Higgins. Now, I'd probably go Higgins over Cooper, but Cooper's got more proven production. Deontay Johnson at 4. Beckham Jr. at 5. Pickens at 5. So they were ranked equal. So they were equal ranked. So then it jumps to 7. Tyler Boyd. 8. Rashad Bateman. 9. Donovan Peoples-Jones. And 10. Allen Robinson. Now, I don't know how they pulled out. They asked their members, I think, that are made up of all 4
Is that
teams.
only AFC North, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But now, look, it's only 1,250 people. It's a small fan vote. It's social media. But I actually thought it was just kind of funny that, like, I was happy that 3 Steelers made it in. I mean, one could argue Deontay Johnson and Amari Cooper, depending on the season, are equal. I actually think T. Higgins is very underrated, and I don't think the Bengals use him properly, and I think that's why... Hopefully, I think that's what they're trying to do with their O-line. But I thought Robinson should be ahead of Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, these ratings are pretty subjective. But put it this way. A year ago, we probably would have said Deontay Johnson, that's about it, right? Before the draft, particularly. And before Pickens had his first year, you wouldn't be able to say that. So, and you kind of think if they hadn't have acquired Allen Robinson, we'd kind of have... 2 in the top 10. We've got 3 right now. We're hearing everything good about Calvin Austin. I actually think that's pretty cool to get 3 in the top 10 there. But particularly when you do have those Bengals, I think Bateman should be equal with Beckham, though. I don't know how Beckham gets.
I think Beckham's overrated, man. I think he's
that's what I mean. But anyway, I wanted to ask you what you thought initially when you
Yeah, well, I think Beckham's overrated, to be honest. I think with a lot of Steeler Nation, we fell into the trap of like, we need to go get Beckham now. And it's like, well, we got the better ram anyway with Robinson. He's much better receiver, more productive. And Beckham, look, I know he had a good Super Bowl, whatnot, but they got injured. But it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know what he's going to do much over there with the Ravens. They won't even get in the ball. So they're trying to go to the powerhouse now with some of their receivers. But I think obviously Pickens, if he has a big year, if you do this list next year, I could maybe hammer down more that Pickens could be number one, right? If he has a big year and 10 TDs and 1,000 yards, DJ, he'll get back at it. I think he'll be up there too. There was this really odd scenario last year with the rookies coming in, changing quarterbacks, the scheme with the offense, and everything to do with, DJ getting no TDs. That was part, not just his fault, but like part of the offense too, how that kind of worked out. I doubt that happens this year. I think DJ will get some TDs. I think he'll be fine coming back to it. His biggest thing, what I see in his football play as a receiver, it's not his route running, is the fact that he comes back so far to catch the ball, and then he can't work his way back up the field. But that's all part of his route. So I think you're going to see Pickens getting the ball more down the field. Robinson, if he has a good camp and can be that third guy, then excellent. I reckon Kenny Pickett will have more time this year, though, to develop chemistry with the receivers than last year.
Oh,
people are forgetting about that. Like, you go back and watch those that pass.
Well, that's like the video on this channel, man. That's what I said on the video on this channel. Is Kenny Pickett underrated? If you've not watched it, go back and watch it. Like, 100%. That's one of the five reasons.
They still are, though. They still are making him underrated. But it's like, you give him a full off season that at number ones, go in the camp, looks more confident, he's bigger, stronger. And you look, any job you do, you get better, right? In this stuff, if you are improving every day, we're going to see that. So that pass to Najee Harris was fantastic to beat the Ravens. Imagine that going into this season, being number one, and then developing chemistry with Pickens, with Deontay, guys who he likes, and a new guy, the veteran guy coming over, and then sneaking in a Calvin Austin, which we've heard good things about. Yeah. And then we forget about Muth. We just keep naming names. Forget about Muth. Forget about the Warren can catch everything at the backfield.
Najee actually getting time to catch the ball out of the backfield. Like,
it's just going to be exciting to see that development from Kenny Pickett and the receivers being that high. If this list was next year, you could have 1, 2, and maybe a 5. You could have that if DJ goes, or maybe a 1 and 3, or 1, 3, and a 5.
I don't know. I mean, I would say I think Jamar Chase is going to have a productive year. Like, it then could be.
He's a freak, though, isn't he? He's a freak.
Yeah, he's a freak at what he does at his weight and stuff. But again, that can be subjective. Stats only tell, so much of the picture. But that's a good segue into the coaches. So what I wanted to do on today's show, I thought it was cool, was we did the grading of the recent draft classes. And we're probably, as we build through training camp and we get closer to knowing who's going to be where and at what position, we can do this with some of the position groups and stuff like that. But I wanted to talk about the Steelers coaches, and we can do gradings. Now, I think it makes sense. We go overall Mike Tomlin, we give him a grade. We give Matt Canada a grade. And then I think we'll do the coordinators, but then we'll give a separate grade to the supporting coaches on offense and the supporting coaches on defense. It wouldn't make sense to give everyone a grade right through the coaching staff. And then, of course, also we'll do Danny Smith from a special teams perspective. So I wanted to start, obviously, with, I think Mike Tomlin is let's start at the very beginning. As they say in The Sound of Music, that's the very best place to start. So obviously you kick off with Mike Tomlin there. Now we're going to give these ratings out of 5. And then if we want to clash this against the draft grades and stuff like that, I'll just double them and turn them into 10. But what I want to do, because when we did the draft grades, I was thinking about it, we had 5 as the baseline, where if you hadn't seen them prove anything, but then we had guys that we'd seen do stuff, but not a lot, and we graded them below. So if we're, particularly when it comes to some of the rooms, having a think about it, if there's new guys on that roster, like we know there's some on the defense, we're probably, I think that baseline numbers are 2.5, right? And I think that's better with the grade out of 5. But let's kick off with Mike T. Obviously, there's the Fire Tomlin crowd. You and I are the opposite of that. But out of 5, what grade do you give Mike Tomlin? Now, this also, you can judge this too. Another way you can look at it is not necessarily what he's done as a career to date, because he goes in the Hall of Fame right now, what he's done career to date. But I want this to be thinking as we go into this season, all the players they've added, the changes they've made. So I'm looking at this as a prospective grade for 2023.
So like from last year, more like focusing more on last year and what we improved this year.
It's kind of focusing on how you grade it going into 2023.
Right. So, I kind of put it that way. I kind of put, you know what, I'm going to be a little bit harsh. It's going to be very hard to give out 5s, but I think in this scenario, I'm going to give a 4. I think people forget how talented, how much Mike Tomlin means to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the city of Pittsburgh, and that players like Patrick Peterson want to play for him. Guys come over like the Herbigs and have a big meeting with him, you know. Guys like Marcus Golden, who had dinner with in 2014 and whatnot for the draft, come back to the team. So that kind of stuff and him going throughout the OTAs, I know. You know what's kind of funny? The Fire Tomlin crowd kind of stops at that. There is no real nothing backing that. They say Fire Tomlin, and then you go, well, what else do you want to say about that? There's just it stops that because he hasn't won playoff games. There's a Fire Tomlin crowd there. I actually don't think we should even discuss the Fire Tomlin crowd anymore because it doesn't matter.
No, let's not. Let's forget about him.
The Roonies won't fire him, so why are we even having the discussion? So I've even given up even supporting that idea because it makes no sense. The Fire Tomlin crowd and it's like the politics. Yes or no, left or right, doesn't matter. The same bird, same thing, right? But for me, Tomlin this year going to 2023. It's 4 out of 5, I'd say. I'm pretty confident in him being our coach, and I'm confident that he can lead the team to some wins too. And the team's confident around him as well, right? If he goes under a big year this year and we win a few playoff games, a wild card, divisional game, and have a chance for AFC Championship, then it'll be a successful season, right? I think what about you? I think 4 out of 5 is like where he's at.
I'm going to give him a 4. I'm going to give him a 4.5, to be honest.
There you go.
Because you can't give halves. I should have said that at the start.
Okay. That's all right.
Do you want a 4.5 or are you going 4 still?
I'm gonna go 4 because if he does really well this year and they finish, you know what? You can be successful without a Super Bowl too. If they go 3 wins in a row.
Mate, if they can make it to the divisional, let's say they don't win the North, they make the divisional, they win a playoff game and they have a really strong showing, that to me is success in this year. And they build for 2024.
Build for next year, exactly right. So I'm gonna start 4. What's your reasoning for 4.5?
Yeah, so I just think, put it this way. Let's say the team had won 2 or 3 games at the start of the year, lost a bunch, won a few more, lost a couple, won the last couple of games, and they had a topsy-turvy season, right? I'd be more 3.5, 4. But I'm 4.5 because of how many games they won down the stretch, like 7-2. And yeah, they got TJ back for some of that. But ultimately, you relied on George Pickens as your number 2 wide receiver. You had Pat Freiermuth miss some time with concussions. Kenny didn't play against Baltimore. Kenny only played, I think it was like 40% of the, he only played like 40% of the game, about 75% of the first half against Tampa. So from my perspective, you look at the ingredients, like, you know, when you make a go eat a expensive dessert out or something like that, you got to look at the quality of like the chocolate that you put in or something like that, right? And if you're going to make it with like the crappiest chocolate in the thing, it's probably not going to be a very nice chocolate cake. If you're going to make it with like Swiss chocolate or whatever, it's probably going to be pretty tasty, right? So, you know, it's steak, right? If you cook a minute steak, you know, and you slightly overcook it, it's going to be bad. But if you
tell you what, can I say one thing about minute steaks? You know the best thing to do about that? Marinate the absolute heck out of it for like a day or 2. It's fantastic. Make it real nice and soft.
So yeah, exactly. So like, I just think it's these sorts of things. But the fact that they won 7-2 to close out the year, and then they make the additions they made through free agency, the first wave, the draft, and then they're starting to make a couple more. I just think going into
can I build off that point, right? You said the last since the bye, right? You know, since the bye and going back and looking at it, right? So there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-2 after the bye, and collectively, in those losses, they only lost against the Bengals 7 points and the Ravens 2.
Yeah.
So it's 9 points of difference from being a perfect record since the bye. And here we are saying, oh, boo. It's like, nah, man, it's not bad. Not bad at all. 9 points. Yeah. So I'm with you there too. I'm still going to say the 4, but I see what your logic is. They finished really strong. And the other side of the coin is too, some fans out there will say, oh, but they only versed the Colts. They only versed the Falcons. You can only play, you can play, right? And they play good games. So if they beat the Ravens or they beat the Bengals and they go on that stretch, they are in the playoffs last year.
Well, do you know that was only the 3rd time in Mike Tomlin's tenure in 16 years that they've finished 3rd. Every other time he's finished 1 or 2.
3rd time?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
The 3rd time he finished 3rd. in 16 years. Right?
Well, I was talking to you off air about this too, and they now predict, some of the media outlets are saying that they're hanging on the edge about going fourth. This team's not going fourth. Not going to happen. They're saying, is there a chance that since 1988, the Steelers have never finished fourth in their division, including the AFC Central days? That's before you and I were born.
Yeah, man.
So I like it, but it's like you said, 4.5, and they're setting themselves up for success this season. And if it doesn't work, if we playoff win or something like that, you get 2 in a row, then next year the draft happens, even better chance to go even further, I reckon.
Correct. All right, cool. What about the next guy on the list, who obviously can be quite a polarizing figure? We've made fun of him. We've tried to make a bit more room for him, and that's Matt Canada. How do you have him? And I also think, in context, because this is where I think we'll get a lot of comments after the Fire Tomlin one on the video, is even for those of us out there that have concerns about him and don't care what Peyton Manning said, and if you hear what Peyton Manning said, you can go back and find that on our channel as well. But that's probably how some of you may have even found us, because of the views that we got on that one, and how many, I think we had something like 40 subs off that one. But
unreal.
I think the thing about Matt Canada is the Steelers have acquired players through this offseason process that how to put this? All evidence shows probably fits the Matt Canada offense, whatever that ultimately will be, a little bit better. So with that in mind, Mark, how do you grade Matt Canada going into 2020?
I'll tell you what, I'll put this on the record. I'm okay with him being the offensive coordinator. I'm going to give him another chance, but I will get very frustrated if I see the same thing. However, with that being said, I would grade him at 2 out of 5, just because that if you're looking at stats, the best stat to look at is points per game. They have actually dropped points per game since 2021. So in 2021, they were 5 points per game.
Well, I can actually probably tell you, because
it was something like that. It was 22 or 20 or something like that. In 2022, there were 18 points per game. Can't happen. Yep. Can't happen. So Matt Canada, okay, playbook aside, all this stuff, they're not scoring points. The offense isn't scoring points. Therefore, you don't get a high grade from me. That's the way I would put this thing. If you come to me and I'm the owner, and I'm saying, well, you went down on points every year, it's getting worse, I have less confidence in you. Now, you have to get that back up near 23, 24 points per game. And, of course, the red zone struggles were there. Well,
they were 26 in the league. They were 26 in the league for points scored.
Last year? Bad.
Yeah.
It's bad. And they still won games, right? They still won games. So if you're scoring 23, 24, that 9 can turn into a 14 or to a 13 win game season. So to me, I'm going to put him at 2. I was going to put him at 2.5 in the middle, but I still think he's got a lot to prove. With all these pieces coming together, you need to design something where
you're not letting him off the hook because he got some more pieces.
No, I think this got a time to prove something. You have at this point, you have to go out and be one of the, I don't want to be like the middle of the road 18, best offense. With the pieces we have and the identity they're trying to build, it should be one of the top offenses in the league. It should be, or it has a chance to be.
It should be a top 12. There's a lot of young guys. There's a lot of young guys.
Oh yeah, 100%. But it should be. You should have all the pieces in front of you to do something. And if you do this, if you show me the same thing, or you get 16 points per game, or 17 or 18, then nothing has changed. Nothing's improved. And then the whole argument comes down to: is it chicken or the egg? Is it the player or the coach? Now it's a combination of both. But you can.
Well, I mean, they were 28th in the league for yards per play, right? And they were 4.9. Cardinals were lower at 4.8, along with the Rams and the Colts and the Texans. And if you look at the records that those teams had, they were all losing records off the top of my head. Yeah, they were. They were on the top parts of the draft, right? So, and then it went the Commanders as well, and the Jets ahead of them. So really, the Steelers, without the defense, this team, probably picking number 1. Right.
18's bad, man. 3 TDs, you lose the game, right? You need 3 TDs plus a field goal, and you got a chance to win the game. 24-21. That's what I always see. That's the midpoint. Keep the team under 20. I think players have talked about that. Keep teams under 20 and score 23, and you got a chance to win every game. Whereas, this year you got all the pieces you think you can have, and also your third year going in to be the offensive coordinator. No real excuses now. You have Kenny Pickett as your guy. You have different guys being in the system. Calvin Austin 2 years. You have George Pickens 2 years. You have a lot of guys that are going in the system. that O-line's pretty much the same. Everything's gotten better, right? Everything's pretty much the same. So right now it's time for Matt Canada to show everyone that he can do the job and prove us all wrong. And that's what we want to see. We want to see him be successful.
I was going to go a 2.5. You almost got me to convince me on a 2. I really want to give him a 2, but they were 16th in rush yards.
It's pretty good to see. No, it was 140 yards a game last year.
And their line's getting better. And they did have a rookie quarterback. I'm going to go 2.5.
But that's a key point, though. I think they averaged last year 146 yards a game.
But I think I'm a bit more I can see the pieces coming together. But at the flip side, if we do this halfway through the season at the bye, which might be a good idea when we do usually the record update, maybe we do this as well that week. If he hasn't delivered, he'll get a 1.5 from me. He's got there's probably a bigger fall on my side of the coin for the guys. But
I'm getting worried, man. I'm getting too hyped that if it does struggle, I'm going to be crashed so hard.
I actually feel like you will. I'm sorry to say.
Mate, it's going to happen. I'm taking that risk though, man.
All right. So
what have we got next?
All right. So now we're going to do the offensive coaching staff in the room. I want to overanalyze this, but before you give your grade, who do you think is? All right, I got 2 questions, really quick, and we don't need to go too much into it. Who do you think is the most impactful coach within the offensive coaching staff? And second, who's the X factor that you think provides more to this team than the average person appreciates?
So first question, the impactful one, right?
Yeah.
The most impactful, I feel like, and it's in the name too, might be Pat Meyer because of the offensive line. That's probably the key. That's a key around the offense. Whatever they can do, what are the schemes they can run, how they can do different blocking schemes, run the football is going to set everything else up, I would say. So he might be the most impactful there. I'm going to go with him there. What was your other question? The one that does.
I was who's the X factor in this coaching staff that let's say, but from the smoky, the dark horse, people don't think of them as having an impact, but they're actually vital.
Bringing in Glenn Thomas to take care of probably, we all think as fans, because we don't know, we're not in the locker room, but we all think Glenn's coming in as the offensive assistant is probably the passing game might get better routes, better.
I like
better
that. I like the so, down the Glenn Thomas.
But I don't know. I don't know these guys from Bar of Soap, but it's you probably think that direction. Why else would you bring in that guy that used to be one-on-one with Matt Ryan, and they scored so many points, and the offense was getting 5,000 yards a season? Then bringing that guy in, he's going to be behind. Matt Canada's going to be the guy looking like he's calling the plays, but the setups might be he's going to have some input there. I'd probably say Glenn Thomas. Are we rating these guys at all? We just comment.
We're going to do the overall coaching stuff in the offense, but I'll just feed back on those. So I had Pat Meyer as well. You hit the nail on the head because I just think what we saw in that transition, which we also just talked about
2 years ago. Think about 2 years ago. Think about 2 years ago how bad it was.
And I just think another year, and there was all this talk about Dan Moore, probably still starting to start the season. The rumors now coming out of a few more OTAs is that Broderick Jones has taken that left tackle spot, and that apparently Dan Moore's already been moved somewhere else. And a lot of people think that's right tackle. I actually think it might be a backup guard, but let's see, or definitely and swing tackle, of course. I've got a different X factor coach. Mine's Alfredo Roberts. If Matt Canada's going to have a good year and Kenny Pickett's going to have a good year, Alfredo Roberts' room has to have a good year, right? Because you've got Darnell Washington, you've got Gentry, you got Freiermuth, and you got Connor Haywood. Alfredo Roberts is the X factor in this coaching staff on the offensive side of the football. Now, some might say Eddie Faulkner with the run game, but these tight ends are going to be integral. They're obviously, besides the line, they're the most integral part because we've got some receiving ones. We've got 2 X factor players on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum in Haywood and Darnell, right? One's 6'7", the other's 6 foot. One's 270 pounds, one's 232 pounds. Both instrumental in this team being a nightmare matchup for opposition defenses. So, I've got Alfredo Roberts there.
I agree with that. How many TDs over under 11 for the tight end group, including Connor, including all 4?
11.
Yeah, 11. Maybe that was too low. I'm thinking Moore Muth would get probably 6, maybe, but
Because Muth had like what? Did Muth had I think 5 last year? Connor had 1 or 2.
Gentry won't get any, but
if you said 9, I'd go over. Don't know about 11 though.
Connor wouldn't get 3.
Darnell what if Connor gets 1 rushing though? Does that like?
Yeah, that counts. It all counts.
Okay.
TDs in general. Like, because what I'm thinking now is the offensive line is going to kick off. So
again, I'd say 10 plus.
That's why I put 11.
Running. I'm just trying to think about it as well. Like Kenny Pickett's. Most people go, oh, Kenny Pickett will go throw 30 TDs. If Kenny Pickett throws 27, 28, he'd be top 10 based off last year, right? So my goal for him is 28 TDs, 14 to 16 interceptions. I know that sounds high, but I'm just saying that's what we'd expect if he does
good
better.
Ratio, though, right?
Yeah, right. So 11. If Kenny Pickett's going to throw more than 26 TDs, right? And obviously we talked a couple rushing for Connor. Probably they have to. They probably have to get more than 10. It's the 11. I think I'm getting stuck on the 11.
Well, to me, it's like, Pat Meyer and their group, their offensive line feeds into trying to.
I'm going to say yes. I'm just going to say yes. Stuff it. I'm just going to say
over.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Connor Hayward's going to get 3 or 4
over
this year.
or push. I'm counting push as the over as well, right? Like
depends on fire moves activity as well. If he gets like 8 or something like that, Darnell will probably get 3 or 4, maybe 3, right? Gentry maybe 1. But then, yeah, I think it's the offensive line. It's the extension of the offensive line, and that's what you talk about. Then Alfredo Roberts is going to be very key to look. Imagine being the coach, right? Having those 4 blokes. One guy can play fullback, halfback, and tight end wherever you want him to. Football player. You got the other guys who can block and a new weapon in Darnell Washington. It's fantastic. Like it's not a bad idea at all. To key on those guys there.
All right, so let's get because we've gone a bit more into this than what I thought we might. That's my fault though. I asked multiple questions. What overall rating do you give the coaching staff then going into
this? I guess you know what? I'm going to give them.
Canada doesn't count. Really graded Canada.
I'm going to give them a 3 because I think the points still count. I'm going to give them a 3. I think the points. Actually, you know what? Yeah, 3 would be fine.
Wow, I'm going 3.5. I'm higher than you on everything.
Yeah, well,
so far.
I'm just thinking back to the points of you scoring 8 in a game. It's going to annoy me. You know, I don't mind seeing those games, but you need to score 21, 24 points. I'm going to give them a 3. And if we come back halfway the season, it could be a 5. It could be on fire.
All right. What about Terrell Austin? What do you give him? Remember 19 interceptions last year, led the league.
I know. I didn't even feel like that. He's the luckiest guy in Pittsburgh with Matt Canada as the scapegoat because there were times last year, and he's been a coordinator for 2 years, right? Or 3 years? 2. I think 2. There were times last year the middle of the field was terrible, defensive scheme wise.
Remember when I was on that train midway? Remember I said to you in the season, everyone's on Matt Canada, and I'm unhappy with Austin. Remember when I said that, and everyone was like, "Oh, what?"
No one had fire Austin. We never heard that. The fire Canada crowd was that loud that Austin sitting back, having his sherbets, eating pizza, chilling out, going, well, lucky that's not me, right? Because there are problems on the secondary as well where they make a big play. Of course, you can't field every single play, but there are problems in the secondary.
The third down and longs, we're still seeing those.
It's ridiculous. There were problems also with the running game too, where they were just allowing them to go right through the middle, and you saw like defensive tackles.
There were a lot of injuries there, so
that's true. But there were certain things like and of course, you know what was out, but I didn't think it was like one of the best defenses we've seen a very long time last year. But this year too, also a lot of there's key guys coming in, but a lot of missing veterans too. Overall score though, I'm gonna have to give 2.5. I'm gonna give like a push.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I'm excited to see what happens.
I thought you were laddering yourself up for a 3 there.
But it's similar to what the Matt Canada stuff. If he starts doing bad, the team's doing bad, they all tend to fire the offensive coordinator.
I'm actually updating my Canada score, by the way. I'm giving him a 2. I can't give him a 2.5.
Yeah, and no one thinks about the defensive coordinator. Right? It's not the days of Dick LeBeau. This is the days of Austin's defense. But we never really talk about Austin's defense, do we? We talk about the key players. I never really see. And actually,
remember they still had a top 10 defense in terms of yards allowed.
Yeah, and I guess, or maybe I'm being too harsh then, because I guess the pick wise they led the league in picks, but I guess the offense didn't finish it. So maybe
they didn't. They were the other way. They were in the bottom 10. I lie.
Yeah, you know what? I think if we won games by a lot of points, and because getting 20 picks is pretty high. You know what I'm saying? But it didn't feel like that because we couldn't score points on the other end of it. So, but I'd probably say, 2.5. I'm hyped about the season about Watt and Highsmith and these guys coming in, Peterson and all those blokes. But there's still some new guys there. So it might not be lights out straight away with all the changes. What's your score? I've done my score first every time.
Yeah, no, I'm going to back you on a 2.5. I think he could see a massive lift. I think the acquisitions have been good. But I'm a lot higher on the defensive staff than I am on Terrell Austin himself. Like, I think Austin, if he's not the DC, is one of the best defensive backs coaches in the league. I don't know if I love him as DC. And I think he's got to prove himself because I think Grady Brown's on a pretty quick trajectory myself as we go into there. Well, in that case, I mean, I'll go into the defensive group. Now, obviously, you've got some landmark names here. Aaron Curry's new. Kyle Dunbar's been on the team for years. Everyone talks about what an asset he is for the defensive line. Grady Brown. I actually am pretty high on this group. The only question for me a little bit is inside linebacker with Aaron Curry. To be honest, I think he's great bringing him in, but there's so much work to do, and I don't know. I'm not in full agreement with the personnel that they've got everyone they need there at the linebacker position. So I'm going to give the overall defensive staff probably 3.5. But again, I could see the lift, and Kyle Dunbar and Grady Brown are basically carrying the four.
What did you give Austin himself at 3?
No, I gave him a 2.5.
Okay, yeah. But that can change in a heartbeat. If they have a good 9 games in a row where their defense is on fire and they're feeling it, then that could, by the midway point, could be a 4 or 5 rating, and this team's ready to win.
Correct.
So, but it is really strange. What do
you give the DC stuff?
Oh, their overall staff. I like the idea of bringing the linebackers coach Curry because he's played before too. But that'd be kind of cool to see him pump up those guys. And of course, they went and got new linebackers too. So the whole new scheme or players are different. I like your assessment too of Grady Brown. There could be a possibility he could be a higher there. But obviously, Kyle Dunbar with his guys and the new defensive guys coming in, I'd probably give maybe a 3 too, maybe a 3. I'm just kind of I don't know. I'm hyped for the defense, but I don't
3 or 3.5. 3.
I'm gonna give it 3.
All right. Yeah. What about let's jump to someone that I've actually found to be quite polarizing for some Steel fans. Danny Smith.
I'm okay with him. I don't know what can we I guess grading him on kick coverage, maybe grading him on trying to get punt returns, which we don't do anymore, but you can't return the kickoff anymore now because a new rules come in, so that's different. Team wise, he's been there 9 years. I'd say his assessment of getting Boykin is pretty good. I don't know. Team Smart's hard. What you go first, man. I've been trying to. I don't really know.
2.
Why would you give it 2?
I would have given him a 3. As I think 3 is almost the baseline for special teams because it's so hard to grade. The thing I don't like, they never can convert an onside kick, and you see other teams do it. They don't use special teams in a way that is an X factor with punting the ball. Now I know that relies on the punter, but you rarely see them really lock guys down in the 20 or turn the ball over on special teams.
Nothing special happens. Is that right? It doesn't
kind of think, yeah, you know what I mean? It kind of just goes with the flow. Nothing special happens. They don't get turnovers. They don't get the onside kicks. They don't score. They don't do any trick plays to try and to get 2-point conversions. They don't. It's not I'm a big fan of vanilla ice cream and vanilla flavored things. It's not vanilla. It's just
part of the team.
It's just plain. It's just doesn't,
There are sometimes too where Mike Tomlin does make the decision where he pushes out Boswell for a 57-yard kick, and it's it's not going to happen. Or in different stadiums.
I don't care about that. I think you got to play to win. You got to kick some of those and whatever. My thing is exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Nothing special happens.
Yeah, there's not in the return game we had Sims, but he couldn't get to the house. It was kind of
he's
cool.
Always got this specialist that they pay extra money to. They don't.
And nothing happens with it. You mean Shesky and Switzer?
Yeah, and they had that with Derek Watt, and they had Matakevich, and then they had the other guy that was who was in the secondary. I always forget his name. Who Killebrew replaced. But like, there's always been 2 or 3 guys.
Oh,
I know you got to have special team specialists.
Jordan Dangerfield.
Dangerfield, that's the guy. I tried to remember the other day, right? And they're overpaid, and I'm cool with them being overpaid than the average guy that can fill in. But like, you got to do something, and they don't do anything with it, right? So, yeah, I'm giving them a 2, man.
Yeah, you're right. It would be an interesting rabbit hole to go down to check like if they do force fumbles on kickoffs, because it doesn't happen as usual as we used to see it. Like in the days of Deebo Harris.
Like if you had to win the game, you wouldn't be relying on your special teams,
Yeah, because we don't really convert the and even though it's hard to do the onside kicks, but there's nothing special about special teams. They just go and we got a good gunner in Boykin, but yeah, nothing really happens, does it?
No.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna probably give it 2 as well then, because nothing like
you can go higher. You can go higher if you.
When's the days of getting Randall all the football on a punt return or something like that to throw to someone, or I don't know. But maybe
definitely a 2. I'm adding your numbers up. Are you definitely a 2?
Yeah, 2 will do.
Do you keep justifying your answer why I do that?
Well, I'm just not like, to me with the punting, I'm okay with Harvin, but it's nothing like super crazy. I think Chris Boswell's excellent. I think he's one of the best kickers, but in terms of kick return or even punt coverage, you never see like the coffin corner punts or that style of football to be that direction. It's just a punt in the air that goes I don't know. You are right. It doesn't feel. Teams doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like a teams like with the Seahawks, and they do their big stuff with Dickerson. You know what I mean?
Man.
Or Niners have some good teams too sometimes. But they push them all the way back.
There's 3 phases of the football, and I don't feel the Steelers' 3rd phase of the football and special teams is not costing them games, but it's not winning them games either. And
do you know what? Does Danny Smith have anyone next to him? Is he like the only guy doing teams?
No, they've got. I think the linebackers fill in on it and stuff like that, and then the coaching assistants as well. But yeah, that's what they've got on the website.
Just called out Danny Smith.
Danny Smith.
You're right though. It just I don't know what is special about this team. I don't know even who's going to even play. What guys? Because there's no Watner now. I guess Hayward will play. I think Killebrew will be teams in there. You need someone to go out there and with some authority. Benny Snell was a pretty good kickoff coverage guy. He's not there now. So it's a great question. Honestly, don't know.
All right. Well, I can give you your total score before we wrap up the show. Yeah, so right. I had an 18 out of 30, and you had a 16.5 out of 30. I don't know how I'm higher on the coaching staff than you are.
I think mine comes down to the Canada. Maybe Canada should have been higher. And of course, I ripped apart the Trellis a bit too.
So overall, if you had to give a grade out of 5, overall, everything together, what would it be?
I'd have to probably say right now, going this season, I'd probably say, if it's everyone collectively, probably 3.5.
All right.
Like we're there, but we're not there.
It's so funny though, because what that tells me is your weighting for Mike Tomlin being the coach is much higher than the rest of the coaching staff. He's the only one you gave a 4 to, same as me. But your score is like a 55% kind of thing.
What I'm saying is, like with the Terrell Austin stuff, he has some of the players there, but it doesn't feel like those days of Dick LeBeau when it's like sit back and go, "Wow, they did that." That guy down there. He came back.
In fairness, LeBeau had some Hall of Fame. Like he had 4 or 5 Hall of Fame, right? Now the Steelers probably have 3 maybe on that defense right now, maybe 4 in Pat Peterson. But yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. But Marky, that was a fun show. We got more to come this week, but that's going to wrap up this week's Mad Monday.
So most airtime Danny Smith has ever gotten on YouTube. Good old Danny Smith. He'd be a good bloke to have a beer with, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. It's no, he's got to work with his personnel. It's just I don't think they've done anything special, and I think you need that. I think you need to be able, and they need to pull the rabbit out of a hat once a year at least, and I don't see that from them. So.
Yeah, it's going to, you know what? You are right. 3 phases. It's going to be an interesting part of the game when no one's talked about teams that coverage and that kind of stuff that just nothing's really changed.
And they obviously want to do better. Like they're bringing in competition for your mate, Christian Kuntz.
Oh, yeah. Rex Sanahara's come in there, man, during an off-season workout. I haven't signed him yet, but there's that. Okay, that's what I do like about what's been going on recently is they're bringing in guys, even at long snapper, for workouts to make Christian Kuntz, sweat
Yeah.
a little bit. So
yeah, exactly.
But we're right. Can we get some fumbles and returns and something like that to set the offense up? Come on,
Yeah.
come on.
Give Kenny Pickett a few 3-foot putts kind of thing, line up for him, or Chris Boswell if Kenny Pickett can't do it, a 3-foot chip. So, all right, Marky D. Well, as always.
Yeah, go Steelers. Here we go.